Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast on pennstate.rivals.com. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary. Changed my last name up. That was pretty fun this week. Forgot about that. I almost said my old last name. But long story short, that's changed, and that's really it. That's all I got. But as always, joined as my co-host, Dylan Callan-Crawley. Dylan, some exciting/interesting news this week with recruiting. We had a bunch of official visitors scheduled to check out Penn State over the next couple of months, whether it be next month for spring practice. Actually, what are we talking? Like 2 weeks actually from spring practice.
Yeah, just right around the corner.
Yeah, so we got a long list of unofficial visitors. Nothing too crazy there. I want to talk more about the official visitors. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 10 plus already confirmed. So we don't have to go one by one through the list, but who are some of the key names that you're going to be watching through these June official visitors?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly already a strong list that they're putting together for official visits in starting May 31st, going to the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
The names that really pop out to me, just quickly going over it, defensive end Max Granville, a player we just confirmed here before going live on the podcast. He'll be on campus May 31st. He's one of their top overall targets in this recruiting cycle, arguably their top defensive end target in the class, as reported on Wednesday, as we took a look at each of the positions in the 2025 recruiting cycle and where or who Penn State is targeting the most at each spot. And that same weekend, they got linebacker Ty Jackson on campus. Jackson, somebody who's we just rated as a 4-star prospect on Rivals. Not on the Rivals 250 of this last update, but next update, I'm sure will be within that Rivals 250. I think one of the best linebackers in the nation. Penn State already has 3 linebacker commitments, all ranked in the Rivals 250 so far this recruiting cycle. So I think Penn State would love to add Jackson to that group as well. Somebody to watch there. He also has official visits set to Florida State, Georgia, and Tennessee. It's going to be a tough recruitment to win. It's always going to be tough to take a kid out of Florida and out of the hands of SEC programs, but Penn State's done it before. Going to Granville quickly, also has OVs set to Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Clemson and USC also in the mix there to receive potential visits. Fast forward to June 14th, wide receiver Jeff Exeter out of Maryland is somebody that we have future casting in any lines. He'll be on campus for an official visit. Definitely something to watch there. And then June 21st, Nayshawn Montgomery out of Miami Central, Florida, one of the best wide receivers in the country. Penn State would love to add him to the class. Is it going to be possible? We'll see. That's going to be a tough one to win, but if he does, in fact, make that official visit, that's a big win in itself. But also safety Jadon Blair, who's, along with Kanoa Winston, Penn State's top safety targets in this 2025 recruiting cycle. So those are the names that really, stand out to me off the first 10 or so that we've confirmed here. Safety Onis Konabani out of South Carolina, also somebody worth noting as well.
Yeah, he actually just had the biggest rise in the rankings out of any prospect in the country this cycle. So I think he went from unranked to, what is he, like 150 or something like that? 190? 109.
109, yeah.
Yeah, there's that dyslexia kicking in a little bit. That's out of all these visitors, gun to your head, do you think they land one of these kids at least, if not more?
Yes. Out of those, how many did I mention here? 2, 3, 5. I mentioned 5. I would say I feel good about Penn State's chances of landing over under. I don't want to give an even number, so I'll say 1.5. I think there's a good chance they land at least 2 of these guys. It's going to be tough because Montgomery being recruited by a ton of schools out of Miami Central. That's tough. Ty Jackson, I think they can win that. I think they can absolutely win the Granville recruitments. But again, going into Texas, stealing a kid away from Texas, A&M, and Oklahoma will be tough. And Ty Jackson, we talked about those other official visits. those will be tough ones to win, but they're in the conversation for all those guys right now, which says something. And I think they'll have a good chance to land at least one, if not two, even maybe three of those guys.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know we recently future casted Jeff Exeter to go to Penn State eventually when he commits or whenever he decides to commit. We also put in a future cast for Lex Cyrus. So add those two, Lyric Samuel. That'd be three receivers. Could they take a fourth too?
Yeah, I think that's certainly possible. I think 4 is probably where they want to be in terms of the wide receiver group that they take in this class. So yeah, I think 4 is about right. If they get to 3 and maybe they don't hit on that fourth guy they want, I don't necessarily think they would reach on somebody just to fill that fourth spot. But just like with linebacker, if they can get Lex Cyrus and Jeff Exeter in this class, and then you have that extra spot to kind of play around with, I think they'll be more than willing to take a fourth, but I think they'll be a little picky with who they take with that fourth one, just like we saw at linebacker here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Now, another thing I find interesting with FutureCast, we had one in for a while for Kanoa Winston, and I'm pretty sure we're still kind of confident in it happening potentially. Now, how many safeties do you think they take this cycle? Because I'm looking now, and if 1, 2, 3, there's 4 scheduled for official visits, and not one of them is named Kanoa Winston.
Yeah, and I do think Kanoa Winston's going to ultimately end up taking an official visit. I still feel good about Penn State's chances there. I think probably at most they would take 3 with Amari Gaines obviously in the class because I don't think they would in a perfect scenario. I don't think they would turn down Kanoa Winston or Jadon Blair if either one wanted to commit, or both if they both wanted to commit.
Yeah. Speaking of commits, they already have a quarterback commit in Beckham Kritza, who actually just made the announcement that he's going to go down to Miami Central.
Back to Miami Central.
Yeah, back to Miami Central. And he's going to be playing with Naishawn Montgomery. How much of a factor is that going to be, really, in his recruitment? You think it can't hurt, right?
Yeah, it can't hurt, right? Does it help? Sure. Is it going to absolutely change that recruitment and flip all momentum to Penn State? Probably not. I think it, maybe it gives Penn State a little bit of a boost, but, they're not going to. They've had a problem, I'm guessing, a previous relationship from when Kritz was down there previously, but it's not like they're going to be playing down there together until next fall anyway. So, yeah, and by that time, Montgomery probably has his recruitment wrapped up.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely want to keep an eye on that one. It should be interesting to see if Beckham Kritzer can kind of do anything down there as a recruiter, because most of the time these quarterbacks are kind of the unofficial leaders of the recruiting classes.
Right.
So,
right.
Sticking with quarterback a little bit, we noticed, unlike last cycle where we were it's a little bit of a guessing game where Penn State was going to go, because you had Michael Van Buren, you had Ruben Kramenhoek, a couple others that were kind of near the top of the board, and they were all kind of balanced at that top of the recruiting board for Penn State. This cycle, it seems like Matt Zollers is far and away the number one prospect left on the board at quarterback for them. However, what's the latest you're hearing? Because it sounds like SEC schools might be pushing a little harder than we thought.
I'd argue he may be the number one target right now, regardless of position. But yeah, I mean, the last few weeks here, I've been saying, I think it's going to be Georgia, Penn State. But over the last 2 weeks or so, I keep hearing more and more about Missouri Tigers being a factor in this recruitment. And I would right now say this is going to be a Penn State-Missouri race until the finish. Georgia seems pretty locked into going after Juju Lewis, which if that's going to be their guy, then Zollers is probably going to focus elsewhere. Which, no offense to Pitt, it leaves Penn State and Missouri. We're here. Missouri is going to make a pretty substantial NIL offer to Zollers. I do not know exact figure amount, but it's going to be. I've heard high 6 figures or more in this recruitment. How true that is, I really do not know, but I've heard it from more than one person, which leads me to believe that there is some validity to it. So it's going to be interesting to see how much NIL does play a factor in this recruitment. But also, Missouri, Eli Drinkowitz has that program moving in the right direction. I believe he just got a contract extension in the last couple months.
Yeah.
And their offensive coordinator, Kirby Moore, is one of the brighter offensive minds in college football right now, a younger offensive mind. And we saw what they did this past season with Brady Cook. So I think there's a lot there for Zollers to like about Missouri. That being said, he's been at Penn State. It feels like probably 10 times in his recruitment around there, all in all. So he's obviously been to campus a ton. He seems to really like Penn State. Danny O'Brien, we've heard a ton of good things about, not just from Zollers, but from quarterback recruits throughout various classes. So I think that's all going well for Penn State. It's just how much is NIL going to play a factor here? And if it does, can Penn State make a competitive enough offer per se to convince Zollers to stay home? But I definitely think this is gonna right now. It's trending towards Penn State and Missouri. I'm never gonna count out Georgia, but right now I'd say it's trending towards Penn State and Missouri, and I'd still give Penn State an edge here, but it's definitely getting pretty close.
Yeah, no, it is hard to turn down that much money if that
Right.
is the truth right there. But yeah, no, it's interesting NIL perspective, and this is kind of a little segue into our next little topic. But NIL is clearly an issue. It's an issue around the world, around the country, around the nation, whatever. Recently, Tennessee just had a fight against the NCAA where the court kind of ruled in favor of the schools, saying like, yeah, there's no rules really. It's just you can kind of do whatever you want. You can spend how much you want. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting. Go on.
No, I'm just going to say that's a substantial decision by the courts because essentially we will probably look back in 5 years or so and say that was the day the NCAA pretty much died. Because if the NCAA really has no overruling power, then this is going to go down a very slippery slope pretty fast. And college football, as we know it, I would say, may have died with that decision. Which I'm not going to say that's necessarily a good thing or bad thing because time will only tell. But it's one that's going to have a large impact for a very long time going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The good news is Penn State's on the right side of things with the Big Ten Conference.
Right.
They invest enough that it doesn't matter; they'll be fine regardless. But the paying the players it's pay to play. There's no question about it.
It's very much headed towards being more of NFL minor league system. It feels like than actual college football. It's just how much is the school part going to remain a focus here?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it works. If they get a salary cap, if they get like I don't even know, a Roger Goodell type guy to run the whole thing, which who knows? But like I said, the Big Ten's not going anywhere. SEC's not going anywhere.
Right.
Everyone else, it's kind of up in the air for them. So, but we'll wait and see. But going back to the NIL thing, Penn State's NIL efforts are just not there. Now, obviously, Happy Valley United is doing quite a bit of different things, bunch of different campaigns. They're doing a lot of ROI stuff, which is what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to actually do something to get this money. But like just reading off our message boards, for example, like from what I was reading right here from one of our members on the Lions Den forum, a lot of people he knows, so even CEO grads from Penn State, refuse to donate until the school re-honors Joe Pa, which I don't know if it's ever going to happen. So I don't know how you kind of fix that one for starters.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. And I will say the NIL discussion is very interesting because you hear things like this and how the NIL may not be doing as well. But then, I wasn't able to find any evidence of this, but I heard a rumor the other day that like Abdul Carter was driving around in like a McLaren.
Yeah.
So like if Abdul Carter is driving around in a McLaren, then the NIL issue can't really be that big of an issue.
Yeah.
I
think they're like middle of the pack. That's what what we keep hearing. They're not competing with like the Georgias and Missouri's even up there.
Right.
Indiana's got one of the better collectives in the college athletics world. Maybe not football wise, much more hoops wise for them. And they all kind of pick and choose where they send it. Like
Right.
look at wrestling. Wrestling's got a nice little chunk,
Right.
but
And,
football, it's like,
but yeah, I mean, if Penn State's not, if there is a portion of the fan base which is not going to donate because of the paternal issues, I wouldn't be shocked by that. I'm sure I know there are absolutely those people who are out there, and I would even say there are probably people out there who aren't going to donate because they're still, in the idea that this is college football. We're Penn State. We do not have to. We don't pay our players, this or that. We don't have to do this, that to be successful. We do it the right way, this and that.
sorry, wake up.
But unfortunately, college football, that's not. The college football has very much turned into a full communal effort in the fact that if you want to be competitive, everybody needs to do their part. Like everybody from the coaching staff to the players need to do their part, but fans also now need to do their part in donating to NIL and
local businesses, everything.
And right now, SEC, it's the motto. It just means more. And compared to the SEC and the Big Ten, that seems to be pretty true when it comes to NIL. I mean, you look at Ohio State, it feels like NIL didn't really matter to Ohio State until they saw their biggest rival go and win a national championship.
Exactly.
Me and Marty have been saying for months that the best thing to happen to Ohio State could be Michigan winning a national championship because it would wake Ohio State up and make Ohio State, put in effort into these type of things. And look what they did in the first transfer portal immediately after Michigan wins a national championship, or in the process of winning a national championship. I don't think that's a coincidence.
So that's my kind of question. What is it going to take? Like, what Michigan State winning the national championship? But that's not really like a true rivalry. I
would say Ohio State and Michigan are bigger rivals than Michigan State, just because that Michigan State rivalry is kind of forced upon both schools. Not a ton of history there, but
we've seen them lose to Michigan and Ohio State every year for the past how many years? It's like, when's it gonna click and be like, hey, oh shit, maybe I should start donating and try to get this team to be a little better.
I don't think it's going to for a segment of the fan base, and I think it's going to it's going to take time. That's the only thing. And Penn State fans just have to hope that it's by the time it's going to take these younger generations of fans coming up that are willing to donate and put towards the effort. I mean, and I think I'm just interested because I don't think it's all Joe Paul, but Penn State has but Penn State has a ton of alumni in CEO and high, positions across major companies across the world. I mean, I believe one of the top people on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is a Penn State alum. I'm forgetting her name, but she's a Penn State alum.
Twitter CEO or some shit.
I mean, these are the people that other schools are getting to donate, and Penn State hasn't been able to get any of these people to donate.
Linda Yaccarino.
Right. Her.
Yeah. Penn State alum for her bachelor's. I don't even think she went past her bachelor's, but based on that, that's kind of impressive. Hell of a come up for her. But yeah, no, I mean, you got to get some of those, it's weird. So the other issue that was being brought up is that Penn State really doesn't have that big whale type donor. Yeah, they kind of have it for sports, but they're not for NIL. There's no NIL donor type thing that, for example, you go to I'll name some of the Northeast programs that do have this. Go to Georgetown. They have 2 donors that are they want people to know it's them donating for NIL. So they're going out of their way and they're buying teams. It might not work every time. Don't get me wrong, because we'll get Ed Cooley. He might get fucking fired in year 1. But then you go to St. John's. They have the vitamin water CEO who's donating all that money to. That's the reason they bought 15 different, or how many scholarships? They bought 13 scholarships for their basketball program. Obviously different from hoops to football, Look at Syracuse. The guy he threatened to leave and go to Binghamton and just start donating there. But then they hired Fran Brown, and now he's back. And now all of a sudden, look at Syracuse. Who the hell thought Syracuse would be getting 5 4-stars? And they're in competitions. They're beating out Texas A&M for defensive transfers. Like, it's kind of crazy. They're in the race for Jabri Coleman, who we were talking about, who's one of Penn State's top targets. And who else? Well, Malik Washington. Like, why do you think they're in it? Because NIL. Like,
again, it's not that those guys aren't out there. I mean, you look at it, not even beyond tour CEO. Mark Packer is one of the most powerful people in all of business. He's the chairman of Nike, and he's the chairman of the Walt Disney Company. There are very few people with more power in business. I do not know how much he makes, but I sure know it is.
I can tell you it's a lot. Probably.
It is a lot of money, a lot of money, and I'm sure his net worth is in the, if not $1 billion, close to. Apparently, he's only worth $228 million. Only $228 million.
Yeah.
But there's a guy who definitely makes enough money to, to donate if you wanted to. The question is why is Penn State, who, is the second best university for graduating CEOs, not getting these CEOs to donate to NIL? I mean, if you attend a Penn State, there's a good chance you're a big sports fan, a big chance you're a Penn State football fan. I mean, Mark Packer is married to a former Penn State athlete. Why aren't these people donating? Is it a lack of outreach? Is it a lack of Penn State not trying to get these people to donate? Is it an unwillingness from their end? I mean, it is very interesting to me because you would think, having these people in powerful positions, you should be able to find ways to grow your NIL substantially and rather quickly, and those ways have not, transpired the way that we thought, or people may have thought they were going to. And I just find that really interesting. I think for Penn State to get there, it's going to take more people in the fan base to buy in. But I think, honestly, truthfully and honestly, it's going to take the entire Penn State community, especially within the administration, to get to that point. You can have football and athletics buy in, but you got to get the board you got to get people on the board of trustees to buy into it. You got anybody with power.
Well, they're too busy fighting among each other. So
right, I don't want to say the administration has to care more about it, but I think there has to be more.
That's fair.
I think there has to be more done from those in power that aren't necessarily related to athletics for the NIL to get to where it needs to be. And if it doesn't, I don't know if we'll ever get to that point.
So there's 673,000 living alumni currently.
Biggest alumni base in the world.
You get half of them to donate that $5 a month to Happy Valley United. And you're probably looking at 1.6, 1.7 mil a month.
Right.
And honestly, from what we've been told, we're lucky. Penn State's lucky if they have like 3 or 4% of that number. So it's like, it's crazy. And then the last but not least, like the other thing we were reading on the boards too is someone just said it's all about the big games, and football drives the bus at the end of the day. There's no question about it. It's the most fans. You get 100,000 every Saturday. That's a home game at least.
Right.
When you lose those big games, when you lose to Ohio State and Michigan, we said it. That's the entire season. You can get 10 wins all you want every year now. It doesn't matter when you lose to the top 2 Big Ten teams every year. You're third place every season. Like, you need to step it up there. And don't get me wrong, the schedule is a little bit different this upcoming season. I don't even know who's on it. I know it's UCLA, USC, Ohio State. No Michigan, so that's one plus. But honestly, looking at this schedule, you lose 2 games in this schedule this year, and all hell's going to break loose. They're going to call for the coach's head. NIL's going to be at an all-time low. Like, you need to win the big game, and especially that Ohio State one because it's home. It's November. You got to
Yeah.
pull that one off somehow. And if you pull that off, maybe things flip. Maybe that's what needs to happen.
I think they go 10-2 and make the playoffs. People are okay, but if they go 10-2 and miss the playoffs, then it's gonna get ugly for sure.
Well, I think even if you make the playoff, you lose round one, people are still gonna be like, "What the fuck?"
I think you definitely have to win a playoff game this year.
Yeah,
you got to show you can win those big games for sure, and that's something that unfortunately for James Franklin, Penn State struggled to do. Now, when you're facing top 10 teams, top 5 teams regularly, you're gonna probably lose most of those games because of the quality of opponent. But it's not like Penn State's gone into most of those games with bad teams either. It's usually not blowout losses either. So I mean, when you're losing close consistently, it's you're gonna get picked apart more.
Yeah.
For the your shortcomings, whether that's from a coaching standpoint or from a player standpoint.
Yeah. Well, that's enough NIL rant. I don't need to be ranting about this forever. I'm pretty sure most of the people already know about it, and if they don't, there's the info for you. If you're interested, happyvalleyunited.com. Join monthly, join something. I do like some of the stuff they're doing in terms of ROI stuff. They go to like grocery stores, they go to this, they go to I think there's a trading card thing recently or something like that.
Yeah, they've done a lot of. Penn State NIL is not in a terrible place. Let's get that out there.
Yeah, it just needs to be better.
Yeah, there is still a significant room for improvement going forward.
Yeah. But yeah, for me and Dylan, actually before we sign off, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below on YouTube. If you're listening to us on one of our podcasting apps, whether it be Spotify, Apple, all that other Google, all that good stuff, do us a favor, do a quick review. All you have to do is hit 5 stars. You don't even have to submit a rating behind it or reasoning behind it. It helps us grow the pod, helps us do all that good stuff, helps us keep the pod going, number one. But yeah, for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the PSU 365 podcast. Signing off.